You are listening to the Getting Lucky Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I am your host, Mr. Awesome, the man with the iron dong, Lucky Robert Curtis. I am joined by Mitchell Stuckey and Lucky. Say hello, Mitchell.
Hello, from the prognosticating champion of the Getting Lucky Podcast.
Hello. I think I went 7 and 5. I think I went 7 and 5.
I don't recall exactly who I picked in some of the fights, but I know that I whooped your ass in our second bet.
Yeah, that's true. I need to stop betting. I need to get like the Gamblers Anonymous. This bet, which will cover the individual fight, was about singing a cappella. And for those who don't know what a cappella means, it means I have to hold a banana in one hand. No, that's not what it means. It means I can't have any musical accompaniment. So we asked for suggestions on the loser, and now, of course, it's me. We only got one piece, one person chiming in. It's sing about Steve Mazzigatti. Well, let's throw it back out there. We have a cage chat coming up next time because we don't have an event coming up this weekend. So come back with us, give us everything you've got, and I'll sing a cappella whatever it is you want me to sing about. And it doesn't even have to be about mixed martial arts. Be kind. I am married with children, and I may run for political office sometimes. I don't want to be singing about licking people's assholes or something.
Too late.
But if that's what you want me to sing about, then I'll think of something. All right. The other thing, we're going to do this show Bizarro Superman style.
And that is?
We're going to start with the main event first. We're going to eat our chocolate cake first, and then go backwards and cover the prelims at the end. That way, we're not going to do two shows. That way, Lucky isn't up till the late hours of the morning uploading shit onto YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, as you might have heard, fuck them. We're going to go back with our original intro music because we like that the best. If they don't like our copyright, then we won't show ads in front of our video, and we won't get paid. We'll do this for free, pro bono, because we love you.
Because fuck them. That's why.
That's right. Fuck them. I hope YouTube listens to this. Fuck you. So, truth style, we're going to start with the Welterweight Championship match. Georges St-Pierre versus Nick Diaz. What'd you think about this fight? I'll throw it out to you.
Well, all right. So contrary to what I was saying on the preview podcast, I watched all the hype video after the preview podcast, and I got it in my head, Nick Diaz can win this fight. Nick Diaz can neutralize wrestling. Nick Diaz can stand and strike with Georges St-Pierre because he won't get taken down. And I was wrong. Anybody gets taken down by Georges St-Pierre. The only problem I have, though, is that Georges St-Pierre is so much bigger and stronger than his opponents. I don't know, it's like just Nick Diaz couldn't do anything. He did get back up, though. His wrestling was okay. But I don't know, I was disappointed.
In rounds 1 and 2, it did not look like Nick Diaz deserved to even be in the octagon with GSP. He just took him down, and Nick didn't even look like he was going for anything.
No, he was just he was just sitting there thinking, what the hell, what am I doing? But
your last-minute second-guessing almost proved to be right in round 3 because GSP couldn't get him down. In fact, I'll pull up the fight metrics while we're talking. What did you think about GSP in this fight? Did you think he was boring? Did you think he was a lay in prayer? What did you think?
I don't want to say that he was a lay in prayer because I don't think that's fair for him because we've seen what those are like a Jake Shields type. I think there is a difference between lay and praying and boring. I think you can be boring while not being a lay in prayer, and I think for me that's what GSP was. Although it was interesting, and I don't know. I don't know how many people notice this about GSP fights, but yes, he does win the stand-up. He won the stand-up against Dan Hardy. He won the stand-up against Nick Diaz. But it's not
numbers.
Yeah, but it's not because he's a better stand-up fighter. It's because he shows them how good he is at wrestling, and then they can't think about anything else, so they forget that they should strike when he's actually trying to strike. So it's not that he's a better striker; he just has them thinking about something else.
I disagree with that. And let me give you the stats first.
Okay.
Total strikes, Diaz landed 80, St-Pierre landed 210. Significant strikes, 41 to 105. And he dominated every area, the head, the body, and the legs. I believe GSP has one super elite weapon with his striking that neither Diaz nor Koscheck in particular could handle, and that was his jab. He landed that jab at will on Diaz.
He throws that jab like he's a fencer, though. Like he's fencing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. My brother does all that fencing stuff, and he has like a Superman and a lunge and just a normal jab. It is lightning fast.
Mm-hmm. I just wish somebody would come across with a left counter.
By the time they're trying to think of that, I mean, their head is popped backwards and they've lost all their power.
Yeah.
So, I agree with you. This fight, I think GSP, well, I don't know if you said this specifically, so I'll refrain from saying I agree with you. GSP dominated in every facet. He neutralized everything Diaz wanted to do in grappling. He took Diaz down at will, basically, with his takedowns. And then on the stand-up in rounds, the last half of round 3, parts of round 4 and 5, he destroyed Nick in the stand-up. Now, there will be people, and there's people who are already starting to chirp, that say Diaz did more damage. Well, Diaz doesn't bruise like GSP does. And if you looked at Diaz during the fight, he was bloodied, and GSP wasn't. If you looked at them during the press conference, Diaz looked cleaned up, and then GSP started to bruise, because that's just what he does. He's got, I don't know, willowy, delicate skin,
right,
like the fair maiden. But in terms of damage, I think GSP did substantially more damage in a overall non-damaging fight.
Yeah, I don't think either fighter put anybody in too much trouble at any point. There was a moment, I think, in the end of the third round where Diaz did hit GSP with something that caught him off balance or whatever, and that's when I thought, wow, this really could happen. But he didn't follow up on it. He instead decided to like strut. I don't know what that was about. He just put his hands in and strut.
I know the shot you're talking about, and I couldn't decide if it was one of those ones where he got him right on the ear or behind the ear, and GSP lost his equilibrium, or if it was just more like he caught him and put him off balance.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what it was either, but the fact that you're watching GSP, who's so aware of everything and perfectly placed for everything, and there he is stumbling, and you're thinking, oh my God, this is it.
In rounds 4 and 5, when Diaz was clearly going to lose the fight if it went to a decision, and he was walking around with his hands down, what did you think about that?
That's just garbage. You don't do that. That's stupid. And I'm sure he's got some excuse as to why that wasn't his fault. That was somebody else's fault. Somebody else is holding him down. I couldn't believe that he was doing that, because I'm sitting there rooting for him going, kick his ass. Here he is standing with you. You have this is the time to do it. And he
started to slow. GSP started to look tired.
Yep.
And we're not talking about the taunting. Like, I'm not talking about Nick putting his hands out, where you at, homie, or trying to. I'm talking about literally arms down, 10 feet away from GSP, walking along the edge of the cage. Mm-hmm. That's what he did a lot. At least I know in round 5. He, like Joe Rogan was talking about, 20 seconds of him just walking around.
Yep.
I think as much as Diaz was trying to play mind games with GSP in the build-up to the fight, all the talking, and then even complaining about GSP's gloves and having a controversy even before they walked out to try to get in his head, I think it was Diaz that psyched himself out in this fight.
Yeah, as soon as the fight was over, he goes, well, I slept till 8 o'clock tonight, and blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah. Dude, you had that loaded. You had an excuse loaded.
And even when he was, I think after round 1, he said, on the stool, he said, win or lose, GSP hits like a bitch. And to me, that's already sounding like, yeah, that was funny. But it's almost sounding like I'm accepting that I'm going to lose.
Yeah. Well, I can't blame him, because after round 1, it was really just, look at me holding you down and not really doing a ton. I'm GSP. This is what I can do to you. So there are two things that, if I can go off course of Nick Diaz's head not being in it, that GSP brought to mind for me. And one of those is how much I hate the style of, I'm going to neutralize your game. I'm not going to try to beat you. I'm just going to neutralize you. Because we saw that in a few other fights tonight. We've seen that. That's essentially what Nick Diaz was talking about in his last 2 retirement speeches. Opponents just neutralizing you. I hate that. And the other thing is, going along with neutralizing, I didn't see a single second where GSP went for any type of finish. Why was that?
Man, that's just GSP's style. He's not Fedor, he's not Anderson, he's not Jones. He's got his own style, and his style highlights all of his strengths and focuses on his opponent's weaknesses, and it just so happens he doesn't go for finishes. And listen, he learned a hard lesson with Matt Serra when he went out there and was trying to finish guys on the feet. He got knocked out and basically jeopardized the legacy that he was trying to build and his career. Mm-hmm. And ever since then, he has been an extremely conservative, win first, entertain second fighter. I can't blame him for that because that's the reality of the sport. It's like saying, I'm going to play a football team and they can stop the run, but they can't stop the go route. So I'm going to throw a go route every single time. And the fans are like, hey, this isn't boring. Like, I'm sorry, but that's the way I win. I mean, I'm going to exploit my opponent's weakness. And Nick, and he said as much, that he had a terrible camp. And this, we'll talk about this in just a second because I really want to spend some time on that. Nick could not stop the takedowns. GSP landed 9. And let me just see if I can get like a round by round. In round 1, he only had 1. I think he
only needs the 1 takedown.
Yeah. I think it says here he had 3, but I can only remember him having 1 takedown because he basically was on top of him. He had 1 takedown in round 2, 2 in round 3, 2 in 4, and then 1 in 5. And whenever Nick started to get a little bit of momentum, he was taken down.
Right. What?
And if you look at they actually had that clock that we were talking about, the dominance position, and I think GSP had like 12 minutes in a 25-minute fight.
That's just crazy.
That wins.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was interesting, I guess, by the way, for those of you, how many did he have? 9 takedowns?
Yes, fight? 9.
Okay.
And he attempted 16. So, to Diaz's credit, after round 1 and 2, where GSP landed everything he attempted in terms of takedowns, he stymied all of those takedown attempts, which actually, if GSP's career rate is something like 76%. So, kudos to Nick in that regard, particularly considering he had no wrestlers in camp.
Yeah. Just to I guess go off that, his wrestling was much better than another striker that he faced, Dan Hardy, where he got taken down 11 out of 11 times. So I guess that's good.
Well,
for
I mean,
Diaz.
Dan Hardy wrestles like a champ for being British.
Well, now he does. He's improved, but that fight was just anyway. So speaking about wrestling in the UFC, this was something I found extremely interesting. Listening to Dana White after the fight talk about 3 different fights, and he said the same phrase. He threw the same phrase in there twice, but refused to say it for the GSP fight. Refused to say anything about it. When asked about the Nick Ring Chris Camozzi fight, he made it a point to say they didn't use any of that boring wrestling. They didn't use any stalling. They fought. And then when asked about the Ellenberger fight, he said he didn't use any of that wrestling. He went out. He came to fight. Then a reporter asks, "Were you excited with the Nick Diaz GSP fight? Did you think it was a good fight?" And he said, "Yeah." So he hates the wrestling, or at least it's boring to him. But he was thrilled by this fight. So my thought was, well, GSP is clearly like one of your most famous athletes, and the reason you're allowed to go to Canada whenever you want. Of course, you have to say he's exciting.
That's true, and there were 20,000 Canadians in the ring in the arena because of GSP. But to say that Dana doesn't like wrestling is not being very nuanced. You know what I mean? Like, I could say after watching Clay Guida fight, I hate striking because of the way he strikes. Mm-hmm. Which is, I'm going to have I'm going to be on Dance Revolution and not actually do anything.
Right.
But Johnny Hendricks wrestled, and there are people that were saying Condit won that fight because Johnny was laying praying. I'm like, no, you don't know MMA if you think Johnny was laying praying.
Ooh, really?
Yes. John Fitch, first off, I don't like the term lay and pray, but John Fitch stalls when he's on top.
Yes.
He maintains top position, and except for like guys against Silva, he doesn't do much. Volkman doesn't do much. Stun Gun doesn't do much. Okami doesn't do anything. Those guys, you could say, fall into the lay and pray category. Johnny wasn't stalling. He was being neutralized in trying to do stuff from the guard because Condit's guard is so good.
Okay, I saw it as
he was really trying to do stuff, but Condit was just better on the ground fighting than Hendricks was. Hendricks was getting his takedowns. That doesn't mean he was just sitting there like, oh, thank God I can rest now. They were trying to do stuff. The Condit was countering and then getting up.
Okay.
But I think Dana appreciates wrestling. I don't think he likes certain styles of wrestling. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let's talk about the after the fight stuff. So let me just set this up. In the ring, Nick is very gracious. He comes over, raises GSP's hand, they hug. GSP is, somewhat tentative. He said he reached out to shake Nick's hand, but was like cautious because he didn't know if he was going to be swung on after the fight.
Yeah, well, he swung on him in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, that was punk. I agree with Nick said. He was just doing it to be mean. He wasn't actually trying to connect. He was just like trying to egg him on. Watching the fight, watching the replay again of that moment, I kind of agree with Nick. I don't think he was actually trying to strike him.
He could have hit him if he wanted to.
Yeah, he could have slapped him across his face if he wanted to. And that, I wouldn't have liked it, but man, that would have been a funny gif forever. So that is in the ring. Now, members of different camps aren't hugging each other. Like, people are like, I don't want to hug you, fuck off. Mm-hmm. So everything looked like, peace in our time. Nick's retiring, and then we could be happy. And Nick was making a lot of very honest assertions as his camp and his lifestyle and where he wanted to be as a fighter. Then he walks out of the ring, and everything changes. He accuses GSP of using steroids, of having illegally taped gloves that were cutting his face. He claimed he wanted a rematch, and then he said, I'm done except for if I can get a rematch with GSP. And then he said, no, actually I'll take a rematch with Condit. No, I'll actually take a fight with Anderson. And then he said, I don't pay my taxes. I'm probably going to jail. Like this, and then he starts going like, I don't think Johnny won that fight. I hate people that lay and pray. And he just kind of went off at the press conference, and it was like kind of a normal press conference. And then he shows up at the very end of the table, and just has like a 10-minute heart-to-heart. This is what's on my mind. I have to admit, I kind of like it, even though I think his lack of polish comes about a bit neurotic at times. Like, I like it, and I think Diaz being in the sport is good for it. I still state that I don't think his chances of beating GSP were very, very high. I will never back off that statement. But with all of that being said, with all that set up, what do you think about all the antics after the fight?
It's just Nick Diaz.
Nick being Nick.
I've tried to analyze it in my head so many times of what's going on with that guy and how he prepares for his opponents. Like, I've even thought Cesar Gracie must brainwash him and Nate before every fight to absolutely hate their opponent, because they hate every opponent they fight. And I obviously it's not that at this point. I don't know, but Nick clearly has a million things he wants to get out, but he doesn't have any proof to back up anything. And there are some points I agree with him on.
We also accused GSP of having a spy in his camp because he
used
counters. Yeah.
Yep. I remember him saying, "I don't know how they knew that I was going to go for that." That was interesting.
He said that multiple times in his interviews.
So, I don't know. I mean, he's got a lot of things he wants to get out. I feel bad for him, but at the same time don't, on the opinion of I'm getting out of this sport because all you can do is hold the other guy down and you win, because he could, there's no question in my mind, he could beat GSP in a stand-up fight. He would whore him, actually. But you don't think so?
He didn't get anywhere close.
I told you why. He was afraid he was going to get taken down after he'd been held down that long, so he didn't want to strike.
Well, he had 2.5 rounds to prove that, and he didn't.
My opinion is Nick Diaz would whore GSP in just a stand-up fight, but this isn't just stand-up. This is MMA. So I feel bad for him in one sense, but at the same time I'm like, dude, you've got to know what sport you're in. So I think all the crazy things Nick Diaz says, I know he truly believes them, but he doesn't have any way to really formulate his ideas before they come out of his mouth so that they kind of make a little bit of sense.
Here's where I feel bad for Nick Diaz. I don't think the guy is a mean guy. I think he has to get into that mindset, him and his brother both, to get himself to want to fight. Because I think growing up the way he did, he fought because he had to. He probably fought because he didn't have a dad, he didn't have a male figure, and was in a rough neighborhood, probably fought to protect his little brother a little bit, wiping a tear from my eye. I'm a little brother. And so I think he gets himself into that mindset because that's how he's always fought, and that's just what his comfort zone is. And if you watch him, when he's vilified, like when Dana says stuff about Nick Diaz that GSP has said, watch Nick's face. He seems uncomfortable with it. You know what I mean? Not like, yeah, fuck him, bring it on. No, he seems like, man, or like he's talking about the soccer mom that said, I hope GSP kicks your ass. He seems uncomfortable playing the villain. I don't think he likes it. And he just wants credit for doing what he does. So I feel bad for him in that regard. I also feel bad that being a mixed martial artist at this level, at GSP's level, or Anderson's level, requires a level of organization that I don't think Diaz has in his life. In terms of, like, GSP goes to 3 camps. He trains in New York, he trains in Canada, he trains with Jackson. Diaz does not do that. And you could tell, because I think it just sort of occurred to him at the start of his camp that he didn't have the people he needed, rather than having someone organizing that for him or him doing it himself. He trains way too much jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu, as you pointed out in one of your articles, does not get results anymore. All it does is give you opportunities when people are dazed or make a huge mistake for a quick submission or defense. People are beaten by decisions, i.e. wrestling or stand-up. And he needs to take his emphasis off of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and put it onto wrestling.
I agree. I'm not sure if he's going to get that. I think what he does need to do also is take a step back and go, okay, so the guys in my camp that have been under Cesar Gracie, that have been in a title fight, myself, my little brother, and Jake Shields have all come up extremely short, like nowhere close. The next guy will be Gilbert Melendez, but he's probably not going to get a shot in a while. So
well, he's actually next for Henderson.
He's the next guy up?
He's the next guy up.
How
but
did I
I'm
not
telling
remember
you.
Oh, because Pettis was up. Never mind. All right.
Right. I'm telling you that I think Gilbert is not going to do well.
No, I don't think he is either.
Against Bendo. I think he's going to lose, and I think it's going to be the same thing. These guys are good, but not transcendent, and I think it's because their camp is sloppy.
Nick Diaz said it before, or I think Gilbert Melendez said this about Nick Diaz. He cannot adapt in the middle of a fight, and I think that's true of all of the Cesar Gracie fighters. They cannot adapt in the middle. And I think that's going to be Gilbert Melendez's downfall, is when Bendo is so much faster and stronger than he thinks, he's not going to know what to do. But that's another fight.
And he's got elite cardio, he's got great wrestling. These are the things he used to beat Camp Cesar Gracie. All right, let's go to the next fight. We've spent 25 minutes.
There's just one more thing. Nick Diaz goes on an 11-fight win streak, loses to Carlos Condit, and then retires. then loses to GSP and retires. What I don't understand how you win 11 in a row and then you lose one and you go, you know what, that's it, I'm done.
Well, he was out for a year, and he said during that year he was depressed and sad because he didn't know if he would get a fight. And no one was there to help or console him or anything. This is why I feel bad for Nick, because I just feel like I said on one of the forums on MMA Share that I think Nick's going to be one of those guys that is dead broke when he's done fighting, and is going to have a terrible after-fighting life.
I hope not, but I think he will.
And when he says stuff like, I've never paid taxes, this to me screams of every other ghetto superstar athlete that lives brightly when they have their talent and then fades back to the place they came from when they don't. I don't want to see that for Nick.
Nope.
All right, let's talk about Johnny Hendricks and Carlos Condit. Fight of the night. I didn't think Johnny would win this fight for 2 reasons. I thought Carlos Condit would be more technical, and he was, and I thought Johnny wouldn't use his wrestling, but he did.
Johnny used his wrestling quite well, and I was surprised to see that he decided to do that. I was surprised to see, a little creepy, I was surprised to see Condit just eat left hands. That shocked me.
I know! Condit.
I don't know. I was taken aback a little bit, I guess, by the decision, but the wrestling really sealed it for Hendricks.
All right, so this decision, I'm prepared to talk about this. This decision is exactly the same thing as what happened to Patrick Cote and Bobby Volker. Right?
Yeah,
so,
it was.
MMA fans look at the fight as a whole, and then at the end of the fight, they're thinking, who won it? And you could argue Condit edged it very closely. At least it should be a split decision either way, right? That's what people think when they watch the fight. But let's score it round by round. Round 1, Hendricks lands 14 significant strikes. Condit lands 15. Hendricks lands a greater percentage, and he's also landing that left bomb, which you said Condit ate. To his credit, significant total strikes 22 to 25. Again, Hendricks more efficient. But then on top of that, very close round, Hendricks lands 4 takedowns. So that round goes to Hendricks. Round 1. Round 2, Hendricks lands 12 significant strikes. Condit lands 13. Again, Hendricks far more efficient, lands 44% of his strikes. Condit lands 27. On total strikes, Hendricks outstrikes Condit 26 of 41 versus 24 of 60. So you could argue Hendricks won that round just on the striking. Add in another 4 takedowns.
So you're making your case once again for Hendricks.
So Hendricks clearly won round 1 and 2. I don't think there's any debate about that when you actually look at the statistics. And then Condit, clearly I think, even with giving up 4 takedowns in round 3, he outstruck Hendricks 14 to 4 significant strikes, 45 to 21 total strikes. Condit clearly won round 3, but those first 2 rounds, Hendricks easily won. I think, well, not easily, but clearly.
I mean, again, it was one of those things where I'll agree with the decision, but I could have seen it for Carlos Condit as well. I don't know if you felt this, probably not, because you are a huge Hendricks fan. But
I'm rocking an OSU bracelet right now from my favorite co-host. yeah.
The whole fight, I wanted the other guy to win. Like, when Hendricks was hitting him with those big lefts, in my head I was thinking, no, don't go out, Condit. Like, fight back, Condit. And then when Condit would get him in some type of hold, or he would unleash a flurry, I would go, no, Hendricks, stay up. Like when Hendricks got caught with that big right from Condit.
Knees.
Or the big knees, yeah. I just thought, no. So I didn't want anyone to win, but I didn't want anyone to lose.
Yeah.
So, but
I have to admit, I love Condit. I love him. He is such a fun fighter to watch, and he is well-rounded in every facet of his game. He is good. And he's got a chin.
Yep.
He's got a fucking chin.
But when it went to decision, that was when I finally relented, and I was like, okay, well, I would much rather see Hendricks win so that he gets a GSP shot, because if Condit won, all that does is fuck over Hendricks. So when it got to the decision, I was finally like, okay, now I know who I want to win.
There are very few fights. I am a Hendricks fanboy, but like I said, I've seen the guy wrestle. I was actually in Gallagher-Iba when he was wrestling for us, Oklahoma State. I ran into the guy on campus a few times. So I can say I'm a fanboy and be proud of it. I'll beat my chest and say, but there are very few fights where I'll actually stand up and shadow box and duck and weave and go, oh God! And that was one of them. In the, and thank God my family, they were away and it was just me in the living room. In the round 3, when Hendricks had his back on the cage, looked gassed, hands down, I was like, Johnny, get out of there! It's like, oh Jesus. I was so relieved after that fight. The GSP Nick Diaz fight, I was like, oh, thank God, it's here. I can relax.
Yeah, I thought they stole the show with that fight. Yep. I think we had to know that kind of fight was coming, though, because not including their fight of the night performance on this card, the 5 fights prior, Condit had 4 of the night performances, and Hendricks had 3 of the night performances. So 3 knockout of the nights for Hendricks in his last 5, 2 fight of the nights and 2 knockout of the nights for Condit. So we had to know this was coming, and I was very pumped for it. I thought it was awesome. But how does Hendricks stack up now? And where does Condit go from here?
I think Johnny, if you look at a percent of breakdown versus GSP, I don't think Johnny does not have a favorable chance. He's less than 50%. But I think his chances of fighting GSP are a bit better than Nick's because he is a wrestler and GSP will attempt to take him down, but not to the frequency he did with Nick. I mean, you just saw how he treated Koscheck and Fitch. GSP will probably try to do the same thing in keeping it at a kickboxing range rather than a boxing range. But we saw how Johnny can close. And here's where I think Johnny's biggest chance comes in, if he can just land his left.
Well, if he can, yeah, but the bad side of that is if he does that, if that's his game plan, he's just going to get taken down and held down. And you could see that his jiu-jitsu was nowhere near where it needs to be for a professional.
I don't know if that's true.
His coach was screaming out, hey, this is what's going to happen, and it was as if Hendricks really had no idea that that's what was coming. So,
but he never got nothing ever got close.
No, but he did put himself in position. He was putting his arms in places where they definitely should not have been. He was leaving his legs out. No, it didn't get super close. But I think that's because his coach was screaming, watch out.
I don't know if he could even hear his coach. But I'll tell you this. I think he was struggling with Condit's length.
Yeah, Condit
because when he was in guard, when he was in top position in guard, Condit still could outreach him. You know what I mean? And I think that's where he struggled. Because he's a short fighter. But my point is I think Johnny and Nick probably had similar chances of beating GSP, except Johnny's got his own H-bomb. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And at any time, that could win the fight.
I think, GSP can definitely be taken. Definitely. He wouldn't survive it like Condit did. So, that would be awesome. But where do you think Condit goes? I think, in my opinion, I don't think he deserves to fight Rory McDonald, even though that's the fight I want to see. Oh, yeah. He'll fight Rory. Rory McDonald should, if it weren't for Condit, I guess. So maybe this is a good case for him. If it weren't for Condit, he'd be 15-0. But he's on a 4-fight win streak since fighting Condit, and Condit's on a 2-fight loss streak. But look who Condit lost to, and look how he fought. Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to get a Diaz-Condit fight. As silly as this sounds, Johnny Hendricks just beat Carlos Condit, but I think Carlos Condit's the number one. Let me change. I was going to say number one contender because Johnny's clearly the number one contender. But looking at it a different way, he's the number 2 welterweight in the world behind GSP. Yeah, I would agree. Which really is weird. Condit is just so well rounded. There's really that's the best way to put it. He's good everywhere. He's a true mixed martial artist. The cool thing was when in the post fight presser, one of the reporters asked him, "So
given these 2 losses and how close you come, do you just throw your hands up in the air and say, man, what else do I have to do? And Carlos goes, no, I know exactly what I have to do. I have to work on my wrestling. I was like, that's very good for you, Carlos. You're one of those fighters that actually takes account and takes inventory of where you are. He does give up his takedowns too easily. He's great at fighting off of the back, but judges don't reward that. Oh. They did in round 3, I guess, but I love Carlos Condit. I'd love to see him fight the Canadian Psycho. I'd love to see him kill the Canadian Psycho and then fight Nick Diaz again.
I would agree. I would love to see him dismantle Rory McDonald, but that last fight with Rory, Condit pulled that out of nowhere. He was going down. So I'm excited for that if that's what they put on.
Rory is just a tough... I mean, he's not going to fight GSP, and he's clearly, in 5 years, going to be the best welterweight on the planet. So what do you do with him?
I don't know. You try to convince him and the rest of his camp to stop coming out in karate gis, especially Ricci, who's coming out in a baby-sized karate gi with a sword on his back.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the funniest comments, I think it was by X on MMA Show, was when Ricci came out, he goes, okay, Katana and Phil Collins. We'll get to that. So the fight before that, or welterweights, completing our little trifecta of welterweights, Jake Ellenberger versus Nate Marquardt. Jake Ellenberger destroyed Marquardt with punches, and then he hit him so hard on the ground, he actually changed the way Marquardt was sitting. He actually reoriented him, like you're picking up like a dog and refacing. He hit him hard. And what made me mad about this fight, that made me most mad, was Chael Sonnen, who is friends with Jake Ellenberger, said that fight made him, his finish was more impressive. Thus, he should be the number 1 contender.
I think that was just for show.
Chael, he fought Nate Marquardt, not Carlos Condit.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference. I mean, if I went in there and I got beat up by Nick Ring, does that make Nick Ring the best middleweight in the world? No. It's Robert Curtis he's beating up.
Right. I think that was just Chael being Chael. Chael having to disagree with Dominic Cruz. Yeah.
Yes.
Because clearly there's no way you can make a case for Ellenberger over Hendricks at this point. No, there's no way you can make a case for anybody over Hendricks at this point. Ellenberger just lost to Campman. Hendricks hasn't lost in a long time, and he's been beating up destroying whoever they put in front of him. So, sure, that was a fantastic KO, but, and I think he is dangerous, like scary dangerous. I think he's good.
At some point, we got to get Ellenberger and Hendricks to fight. At some point, that'd be brilliant.
Ellenberger and Hendricks, or Ellenberger and Condit. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see them put on Ellenberger and Condit next.
Man, I'm like Ellenberger. I'd like to see Ellenberger GSP. I'd like to see Ellenberger Diaz. I'd like to see Ellenberger Rory McDonald. The welterweight is just a embarrassment of riches.
Yep. I'd like to see Ellenberger and Diaz. I'd like to see Diaz not retire and fight the other guys in the little tournament here. I think he beats. I could see him beating Ellenberger. I could see him destroying Marquardt.
You know what's funny is I'm not really compelled by an Anderson Silva GSP matchup. I will watch it and I'll be nervous when I watch because I don't want either of them to lose. But I think what I would rather see stylistically is Anderson Silva versus Nick Diaz or Anderson Silva versus Carlos Condit.
I'd rather see Anderson Silva versus Diaz, not Condit. Condit would. Condit can't stay with him, but Diaz talking shit to Anderson Silva, that would be awesome.
It would be interesting to see if Anderson could out head move those little Stockton slabs,
mm-hmm.
and then counter like he has been. You know what I mean? Or would he take him down and would it go BJJ? I think it'd be interesting. I really would. I'd love to see it.
I think that Nick Diaz would put his face out and put his arms up the way that he does, and before he could even blink, he would be front kicked in the face. He would be Steven Seagal kicked. But I'm sure Nick Diaz somehow would stay awake because he just doesn't go down.
That guy's got a chin, man.
Yep.
Like seriously, it was stuff he ate from Paul Daly. See, this is what I was trying to say on the preview. Is I was being honest about what I thought Diaz's chances were. But I like Nick Diaz, and I knew after the fight, no matter what, I would be singing his praises, even in his loss. But I'm telling you, let's get Diaz versus Silva. I think that would be really, really entertaining.
Yep, I would prefer to see that.
If you thought Chael Sonnen got under Anderson Silva's skin, and I'd love to see Anderson talk about his childhood whenever the 209 came up. That'd be classic. Next fight, the previous fight, Nick Ring losing to Chris Camozzi.
Camozzi.
Yes, split decision, and this was a weird fight. Nick Ring tried to use his speed and just kept his hands low the entire fight, and I think that cost him.
Yeah, I didn't expect that from him. He's not really a stand-up fighter in the sense that he's good enough to put his hands down. He shouldn't have been doing that. He looked like a dick too.
He did. And by the end of the fight, when his face is all busted up, not only did he look like a dick, he looked like a dumbass.
Yeah. I will say that I thought that Camozzi was getting the better of him. Camozzi was hitting him with bigger shots. Camozzi was hitting him harder. I did not think the judges would agree. So I was surprised and I was excited by the decision. But I thought, one of the rare ones where the judges get it right.
Man, Camozzi, whatever the hell the guy's name is, Chris, he is slow.
He's really slow.
Freaking slow. And I don't know if I agree that he won, because, check this out. Round 1, significant strikes only. Ring 27-15. Round 2, 29-19. Round 3, 30-30. No takedowns.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't you say Ring won round 1 and 2?
You could, but
I don't know if I agree with that. I think maybe Ring got punished for his style, which was stupid. But
that's what
Jamie Gum gets beat by Matt Dillon's little brother.
Yes, he does look like Matt Dillon.
Yeah, he's pale too. We had a lot of pale guys. Speaking of which,
yeah.
The first fight on the pay-per-view, Mike the Warrior Samurai Ricci defeating the palest man on the planet. What did you call him? The tough clown?
Scary clown, I think.
No, you didn't call him scary clown. You called him like sad clown or mean clown. It's scary
Angry
clown.
clown.
Is what he is. Angry clown, that's right.
What I just noticed this. Mike Ricci's nickname, or fight name, I guess, is The Martian. Mike the Martian. That's silly.
He's kind of a weirdo.
Yeah, that is silly. But it did throw me off. Dude's coming out to an MMA fight with a sword in his back. Like, you know the rules. You know what's going to happen.
If I was a member of the audience and I was a drunk Just Bleed fan, I would do my damnedest to pull that sword out of the katana when he passed. Pull the katana out of his scabbard as he passed by.
Was it real? Was it a
Oh,
real?
it had to be. It looked real. You think they make swords that just don't come out of their sheath? Even if it was a plastic one, I'd pull it out and wave it around over my head.
Yeah, it really did. How tight his gi was, it really looked like he was coming out in a Halloween costume that he bought minutes before the show.
When he was 15 and wore it now.
I don't know. I like Ricci, though. I just think him, McDonald, and GSP, they've got a weird fashion sense. So
it's like Mike Ricci is weird and Colin Fletcher is weird. Colin Fletcher is weird in the calculated, I'm your fire starter. Oi, oi, oi! But Mike Ricci is weird sort of in the Asperger's sense.
Oh, my God. Too much.
Thank you. Now, before the pay-per-view card, Dana White had a huge announcement. The Ultimate Fighter will be hosted by Ronda Rousey and whoever wins versus Miesha Tate and Kat Zingano. And it will be 135 men's and 135 women's, and they will be showering together or living together. Maybe I got carried away.
There's going to be far too much drama on that show.
Dude, if there were just girls, there would be like little cliques of girls talking bad about the other girls.
Yep.
And that would be entertaining, but probably more something for my wife to watch. You know what I mean? Like, oh look, it's Real Housewives of MMA. But with women and men in there are people thinking that there's going to be sex in the house for the first time. Not that Nick Ring didn't, do his damnedest when he was in there. But do you think, honestly, that there's a chance that there'll be hookups?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Liz Carmouche and which girl?
What I don't like about it, about the whole idea, and it seems like I know Dana White has thought about it, but it seems like he hasn't, is you're really having the two girl coaches coach their future opponents, because 135 is all you got. What's the point of that?
It's happened before. Other guys have done their weight class.
Yeah, but their only possibility is for these guys. Like in other toughs, guys go up and down in weight to their net. They just go to that weight class to get into tough, and then they go when they get into the UFC to their regular weight class. This is the only weight class they can go to. And
the other weight classes are deep enough to where these guys are beginners. They wouldn't realistically get a title shot for 5 or 6 years.
Right.
But in female MMA, these girls are actually probably pretty good and are maybe 1 or 2, 3 fights away from getting a shot. Because they don't have anyone in the division.
What's the point? Why would Ronda or Kat or Misha really even try to coach them anything?
There is no drama without conflict. So there should be lots of drama on this show.
I'm going to watch it because it's a spectacle either way you look at it, but
and there will be the random chance of some 2 girls getting into a fight in the house and one pulling off another's bra. I'm just saying that could happen. World star hip hop would explode. Let's go really quickly through the prelims. See if we can wrap this up in under an hour. We've got 13 minutes to do it. Welterweights, Patrick Cote steals a decision from Bobby Volker.
Bullshit.
That one was pretty bad. Cote won round 1. Round 2 was dead even, and round 3, Volker dominated.
Yep. It was bullshit.
So, at the very least, I think split decision, because round 2 was where it was at. It was 39-37 in favor of Volker, significant strikes, no takedowns, and total strikes 40 for Cote, 46 for Volker. Volker's got a hell of a chin, too, by the way.
Well, they both did. And that's something we knew about Cote going in. What made me... We're going backwards in the list of fights, but this fight, when Cote got the nod, I figured, hometown nod. So when you got to the Camozzi ring fight, I thought there's no fucking way Camozzi's going to win in Canada. So that, I didn't mention that there, but I thought it was a hometown nod here to Cote. You heard the reaction he got walking out. It wasn't like GSP.
He really is the second favorite Montreal kid.
Yeah. People, I'm sure a lot of people into MMA at this point have no idea who he is, but everyone in that crowd did. And I wouldn't blame him.
He looks like Jim Caviezel. He looks like Jim Caviezel.
He does.
Passion of the Christ. Passion of the Cote. This was a bad decision, but I think honestly, which surprisingly, I think Nick Ring got jobbed worse than Volker.
Oh, I disagree. But
like Nick Ring fought like a dumbass, but he still, I think he rounds 1 and 2. I'll say this: Cote, maybe in round 2 they were thinking Cote just landed really, really good shots, even though it was really close in terms of what the numbers say. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah, they could go with.
But
that.
I like Cote, and if he steals a decision, particularly after getting hit in the back of the head with a crowbar by the Italian carjacker, I'm fine with that. Featherweights.
I didn't think either fighter really. I mean, who cares really who won, because neither fighter looked, promising at this point.
I think Cote looks a lot better at welterweight. He looks a lot better. He actually has abs.
Were they welterweights? I thought they were middle. Yeah. Wow. They were huge then.
Yeah, that was his first fight. Yeah, Volker's a beast at welterweight, but that was Cote's first fight at welterweight.
Gee, I knew they weren't light heavies, but they are big enough that they look like they could have been light heavies. I thought they were middleweights. That's crazy.
Yeah. So featherweight, Darren Elkins drops Antonio Carvalho. Some people thought it was an early stoppage. I didn't.
No, Yves Levine made a fantastic stoppage. Why let him get beaten into nothingness?
If you pause it, so he gets rocked. He's on Queer Street, as Rogan said, and then he sort of staggers over there. He's not even looking at Darren Elkins. He gets popped. He drops. If you pause it right there at the bottom of his drop, he's literally falling down onto his knees like the Scarecrow, and Yves Levine is rushing forward. Now, surprisingly, Carvalho just pops right back up, like he's one of those little figures at the little punch box at the bottom, like you can make him dance. Mm-hmm. He pops right back up. That almost never happens. Yves Levine had decided to stop the fight when the guy fell like a sack of potatoes. I don't have a problem with the stoppage.
No, I don't have any problem either. I was correct. I'm going to toot my own horn here, saying
horse.
Elkins was coming out for a stoppage because he hasn't had one since he dropped down, and he did get it. I was very impressed by him. I think they asked Dana White afterwards if he's, what's next for Elkins. He's got to be getting close to a title shot, and not unlike other questions about future fights, Dana White was pretty mum on the subject. But I think that's got to be an idea where you're like, okay, we don't have a ton of fighters in that division. He's getting close.
I would love to see a stare down between Darren Elkins and John McDessie.
I would love to see.
Would they even be able to look at each other?
No.
One guy's eyes off over here, the other guy's cross-eyed.
Dude, McDessie, I don't recall him being that cross-eyed. That was bad. About this fight, my wife was watching the prelims with me, which is rare. She usually hates to watch fights. But in Yves Levine's defense, even she was like, stop the fight. That guy is totally out. So, he great stoppage. But when we get to the McDessie fight, I think my wife met a new me. I was very bad to McDessie in his cross eye.
Yeah, and it's not kind, but it's honest, and I was too. Welterweight, Jordan Meehan defeating very impressively a very game but overmatched Dan Miller. Now I know you're sad about this.
I'm devastated. I like Miller. And where does he go from? They can't release him. They can't get rid of him. But if you look at his last, 9 fights, I wouldn't blame him if they did. He's 3-6 in his last 9 fights.
14-7 overall. Jordan Meehan is 27-8. That kid looks good.
Yep, he looks great. 23-year-old, very, very impressive, and very intelligent. Not diving in to a dangerous guard when he had Miller hurt the first time. We'll see. But Ricci has beaten me, so that's cool.
The worst part about maybe he used his sword on him. The worst part about this fight was after Dan Miller got knocked out and they were doing all the in-ring stuff about to announce it, the way his brother was sort of there, not knowing what to say, but you could tell he was the one that was more sad about it than Dan was. Because Dan was probably still shocked, dazed, tired, coming off. If it wouldn't really hit him, But his brother was sitting there going kind of like every now and then patting him on the back, trying to think of what to say. You could tell Jim was actually pretty upset by it.
Yeah. I think Jim's the younger brother. But it's such a great family of fighters, those two. It's clear who the better one is. I just hope for much better in Dan Miller's future.
And once Dan Miller's future in fighting is done, him and Jim should get together and start like a bluesy folk rock band.
Well, Jim has the look for it. Dan just looks like your average working class American, but Jim really does.
He can be the drummer. He can be the drummer.
Just in the background.
That's right. Last fight on the FX prelims, John McDessie defeats Darren Cruikshank. What we were thinking would be potentially fight of the night. What happened was it turned into a very technical striking battle, which John McDessie clearly won with his jab.
It turned into his jab was awesome, but it turned into Cruikshank being a jackass, just doing dumb ass strikes. Like, look what I can do. Like, who cares? Watch me hit you 3 times before you can blink. Like,
sometimes
why was he
the fundamentals?
Right? Why he was telegraphing a lot of his moves by turning completely almost more than sideways, just to throw a kick that's really not going to do much anyway. Like he was heel kicking at McDessie's thigh. What are you doing? He
nearly landed a wheel kick.
Congratulations. You missed You missed a wheel kick on a cross-eyed guy who couldn't see that coming from a mile away.
Or maybe he can see into the future and knew it was coming.
I was wondering, how does he, does that benefit him? That's one of the things I asked my wife, because when he came up, I said, I have a bet with Rob on this fight. And she goes, oh, yeah, which guy do you want? And I said, Crossy, the old cross-eye guy there. I want him to win. And then I was like, I wonder if his cross-eyedness benefits him. And I don't know. I would doubt that it does, but... By the way, I just wanted to reiterate, you lost the bet, so that's awesome.
That's right. I have to sing a cappella, which means I'm holding a banana, and we'll do that next time. Please send in your suggestions. I will say this. Darren Cruikshank is very talented in a lot of different disciplines of martial arts, but one thing I noticed was that he was shooting his takedowns from 8 feet away without any setup. Mm-hmm. And I think his dad is basically his primary trainer. I think he needs to get away from his dad and get into an MMA camp where he can blend his styles better.
Yeah, you're got a guy coming from a family of, fighting, and all he was trying to do was showcase, look what I know how to do. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck?
If he was being tested for a belt and doing his little katas and stuff, yeah, great. Mm-hmm. But his mother is a kickboxer. His dad was taekwondo, stand-up guy. He needs to get, I think, a better MMA synthesis of connecting his striking into his groundwork. That's what I think.
I look forward to seeing McDessie fight again. I don't think he goes too far into the division, but
was that a pun? Looking forward to seeing.
No, I do like him. I do like watching him fight, though. His striking is great.
The Facebook prelims, Rick Story busted Quinn's eye with a knuckle and then finished him off.
How good did he look, though?
He did. And Rick looks freaking... It's funny, his face looks like he's like an extra in that Tom Hanks movie Big. Like he looks like a 12-year-old, but his body looks like a linebacker for like Nebraska.
Yep, a little compact dude. I thought after the first minute, I thought Quinn didn't look too bad. And then once he got hit in the eye with the knuckle, he just shut off. But I didn't think he looked too bad.
I think he was expecting maybe that it would be an eye poke, so it would stop, but he didn't really protest. It wasn't an eye poke, but maybe he thought it was because he kind of, like you said, he just shut off and backed away. I think you kind of have to fight through that.
Yeah.
I've never been in an MMA fight where I've been knuckled in the eye, but that's that's part of it, right?
Yeah. It was just a knuckle that landed flush, but I look forward to seeing Rick Story bounce back.
I like him. I kind of want to see him get back too.
Yeah.
Bantamweights, Isai Tamara gets caught by TJ Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw is living proof that it's better to be lucky than good. Throw a head kick, land a knee.
Yeah, TJ Dillashaw is an asshole. And I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that for this reason here. Can't wait to have you on the show, Dillashaw. He clearly knocked out Tamura. And then, I forget who the ref was. I want to say it was Levine. Was on top of him, and he threw an extra shot. Like, you're being held by the ref. You've already landed, 5 extra shots. Clearly, 2 seconds after the refs grabbed you, you punch him again in the face. I didn't like that. I didn't like that nobody said anything about it either. Like Rogan or Goldberg, Goldberg didn't even know he was in the arena. But
I think the ref was the guy that looked like Anthony Jeselnik's brother with the beard.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, it could have been him.
TJ was going to win that fight by decision. I did like how he looked down and threw a high kick, but again, he landed a knee, not a high kick. But good job, TJ. And by the way, I do agree with you. He is dickish because that's how he was on The Ultimate Fighter. Remember, he kind of thought he was God's gift to everybody.
Yeah, well, I hope that he fights Dotson again and gets wrecked. I do not enjoy him.
Or John Moraga.
Right. Ooh, Moraga would knock him out. I do not enjoy him, and I hope he breaks a leg in his next fight. That's what you get.
The last fight we're going to talk about, Ruben Duran, who you convinced me to pick, but in my pre-fight analysis, I actually went with George Roop. George Roop wins. He had the largest differential in leg reach ever seen.
Woo!
Woo! What did you think about this fight?
Didn't enjoy it too much. I don't really like Roop, or Hoop, whatever you want to call him. I know for a fact Duran's got to be cut if he hasn't been cut already. He's 1-3 in the UFC. He goes.
Yeah.
But what is he? What is Roop? Like 6'11"? Why is he fighting in bantamweight? He looks. First of all, he's got like the spottiest record in MMA. Roop does. It's like loss, win, loss, draw, win, loss. Roop looks worse than. Why am I drawing a blank here? The Mexican guy with the mohawk who jokes about rape on Twitter all the time. Miguel Torres. He looks weirder than Miguel Torres does with his frame. I don't enjoy him.
He's got the body of a meth addict.
He does.
A career meth addict, and he kind of has the face of one too.
Just don't enjoy him. Although, I forgot. He high-kicked the Korean zombie, knocked him out.
Yeah, I didn't remember that either until I saw the highlight package.
Wow. Still, fuck him. Don't like him.
Roop really did use his size well. He was doing a lot of good kicks, and when he was on the ground, he definitely, his reach on, I think, 5'6", Ruben Duran made a huge difference.
Yeah, he utilized his size, but at that weight class, you're not fighting guys that are 6'1". You can't get a guy 6'1" in your training camp at 135. Which I guess asks the question: how much is he on Fight Night?
I think I saw on the internet he's 317 pounds on Fight Night. 317,
that's about right.
Yeah.
And the internet wouldn't lie to you, I'm sure.
No.
No.
No. What would you? I guess I should mention fight of the night: Johnny Hendricks, Carlos Condit. Knockout of the night: Ellenberger. There were quite a few knockouts. No submission of the night. Again, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is no longer the base of MMA.
No, I didn't. I didn't enjoy though that they didn't give another knockout of the night bonus in place like they did last time. In place of submission of the night, I thought
these were the knockouts: Elkins, Mean, Dillashaw, and Story.
And
other than Ellenberger.
Ellenberger got knockout of the night. I would have liked to have seen. Elkins. It go to either Elkins or Meehan. I don't know. That's just me. I didn't enjoy the fact that they kept that, but I like to see those of the night bonuses go to the lower card fighters. I totally agree with who they went to for this one, but throw the undercard fighters a bone there.
Yeah, if it hadn't been Hendricks and Condit for fight of the night, I would have given it to Cote and Volker.
Yeah, I could see that.
And at least that would be sort of like a nice consolation prize for Volker not pulling the decision.
Right. Or, Kamosi in a ring, but I don't know. I think, well, no, I would say if it didn't go to Hendricks and Condit, it would have to go to GSP and Diaz. But whatever.
That fight was dominant like he was over Condit, but it didn't even have the head kick to at least create some drama. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got off my seat when he put GSP off balance, but you don't know if that was a slip. You don't know what it was.
Yeah.
So.
Or just like a push that made him step back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have a couple of shows coming up for Cage Chat, and then the weekend after this one is a card in Sweden, and boy, they bring out the poo-poo platter for Sweden. The only fight probably worth watching is Alexander Gustafsson versus Gegard Mousasi.
Yeah, not one of their better cards.
Brad Pickett's fighting. Diego Brandel's fighting. Matt Mitrione is fighting. Phil DeFries.
Not one.
Ryan Couture is fighting Ross Pearson. Yeah, it's just
the Pearson fight. I'm excited to see Couture.
Interesting, but that may be our first 10-minut show.
That's their co-main, which is bad. You know what? I see Mitrione losing to DeFries. We'll talk about that then. But Brad Pickett's back. Woo!
Yes, versus Mike Easton. Also, I believe, if this is the guy I'm thinking of, Marcus Brimage, the cutest black man I've ever seen.
I know that when I looked at this card, I totally didn't see that it was in Sweden the first time I looked at it, but I saw Papi Abedi on there, and I went, yep, that's got to be in Sweden. They don't put him on anything unless it's in Sweden.
Yeah, and Akira Corsani's on there too, another Swede.
Yep.
Should we do the entire podcast with the Swede? Say hello to my little friend.
We
The
should
Swedish
get-
chef from the Muppets.
We should get Mashanka on here. I doubt he would do it, but
Or Freddy.
there you go.
We got some Swedish friends.
Yeah. Ooh, Tor. It says Tor versus Adam Sella might be on that card.
Yeah, both fighters obviously eliminated. I was hoping Tor would be better than he was. And speaking of the Ultimate Fighter, Uriah Hall dogged out Johnny Hendricks saying, "I hate that lay and pray shit," on Twitter. Oh, I like you, Uriah, but you're testing me, buddy. You are testing me.
I don't like him. I'm going to say it right now. I don't like him. And I
He's
hope he
mental.
goes to the hospital.
He's like a hot chick. You know how hot chicks are crazy, but they can get away with it because they're hot? He kind of has that weirdo hypersensitivity.
He is hypersensitive, but I am sort of scared of him when he gets in the ring because he is good. But right now he clearly is better, but that makes him look better. Once he gets into legit opponents, he's got.
I want to see him fight a wrestler.
Yeah. You want to talk about the lay and pray shit. But about this card, could they have Tor versus Adam Sella on in the middle of a season?
Well, the season's over because it's not live anymore, and the Ultimate Fighter actually is coming up the next weekend. Anyway,
The finale?
yeah, not Jones versus Son, and that's UFC 159, but
right.
The Tough 17 finale is actually coming up on April 13th. So it's only bringing it up a week early, so Tor can fight in Sweden.
Wow. Oh, so do the next couple of episodes have more than one fight on them?
They must, yeah, because they are in the quarters now, right?
Yeah, they just start.
Quarters.
Well, actually, they're on the elimination match.
That's right. They got the wild card,
Yeah.
and then they've got the quarters, and then they got to have the semis, right?
Yeah, they must have to start doubling them up or something. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about it. That is our show. Let us know if you like our Bizarro Superman reverse backwards format. We'll talk about the main event first and then trickle down to the crap fights. I think, you know what's better is rather than talking for 10 minutes on each crap fight and then jamming in the main fight, we actually talked for like half an hour on GSP-Diaz. So maybe it worked better that way.
Well, we always have more to say about
it. And as always, these are only our opinions. We are not fighters. We don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Let us know where we're wrong. Any final thoughts?
I hope they hang on. I hope the UFC hangs on to Nate Marquardt. I don't want to see him go. I am excited for the welterweight division, obviously, but I don't know. I guess before the show we were talking about how we like to see who's going to be cut and this and that. Now with like a Marquardt and guys like that, I'm kind of afraid of who will be cut, and Dan Miller. So we'll see. I'd like him to cut douchebag Cruikshank. I'd like to see that.
I like Cruikshank.
I like him too, but there was no reason to fight like that.
Nick Ring is the guy that fought like a dumbass.
Oh, he did. Well, that cost him too. Well, that cost both of them, but
he should have won.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for our show. See you guys next time. Peace.